Before you say anything, yes, I know this technically isn't a myth, but stay with me. When has that ever stopped me before? While I do focus on the religious beliefs from cultures around the world, I've covered characters who aren't traditionally labeled as mythology before, like Mulan and Santa. This is just an extension of that, but while those two have ancient origins, this character is probably the most modern subject I've covered to date. Despite his fame though, some people don't realize he originally came from a fairy tale. No, seriously, I've met people who thought Puss in Boots was an original character from the Shrek franchise. No shame if you did think that though. We all had to learn his origin at some point. Now let's dive into the history of Puss in Boots. Unlike the myths I've talked about on this channel before, which again are usually ancient so their origins are extremely foggy, Puss in Boots has a solid origin point. In 1551, a man named Giovanni Francesco Strapalola, I'm so sorry Italy, published the first Puss in Boots story in his book The Pleasant Nights, which was a collection of short stories. Puss in Boots specifically appears in the story Lucky Constantino. In the story, a Bohemian woman dies and leaves her 3 sons her most valuable 3 possessions. Her oldest receives a feeding trough, the middle child receives a board to make pastries, and the youngest receives a cat. The cat officially has no name in the story, so I'll just refer to him as the cat till he gets a name later. Constantino was disappointed over the fact all he got was a cat, which in my opinion, like what the heck dude, it's a cat. But the cat doesn't resent him for this. The cat thinks, don't worry master, I will get us prizes and then you'll like me. Now any cat owner will know what this cat means by prizes. The cat finds a rabbit and kills it. But instead of taking it to Constantino, however, the cat brings it to the local king as a bounty. Apparently, there's a rabbit infestation in the area and the king wants it dealt with. The king thanks the cat for the dead rabbit, but the cat insists that he was just a delivery boy. The one who killed the rabbit was a man named Constantino. The king asked who Constantino was, and the cat responds, "He's a good man with no superior." The king told him that is an acceptable answer, and they had a feast together, featuring the usual festivities like drinking, food, and storytelling. Eventually, the cat had to return to Constantino with a bag full of leftovers, and they had a feast of their own. Constantino's brothers asked him to spare some food, but Constantino refused, saying since they never shared anything with him, he won't share anything with them. Oh, brotherly love. The cat continued these activities, hunting rabbits, delivering them to the king, partying, and returning home by the end of the day, and he did this for a long time. Every time the cat insisted Constantino was the one who killed the rabbits, and that he was merely the delivery boy. Eventually, one day, the cat got tired of walking so much, and he said to Constantino, "Master, if you listen to me and do what I say, you'll be rich by the end of the day." Constantino agreed to this, and the cat took him to the river, a river on the king's carriage route. The cat saw the carriage incoming and pushed Constantino into the water. The cat then shouted, "Somebody save Constantino! He's going to drown!" The king ordered his guards to save Constantino, which they did. They dove into the river and retrieved him. The king thanked Constantino for all the rabbits he had hunted down for the kingdom, and before Constantino could ask what the king was talking about, the cat interrupted them. Is the cat going to come clean about the lie? No, that would ruin all his hard work. The cat instead says Constantino was coming to deliver a gift to the king, but some robbers mugged him and threw him in the water, stealing the gift in the process. The king was saddened by this and gave Constantino a fresh new look, and even introduced him to the princess. Yes, they got married. Do I even have to say that? This is a fairy tale. After the wedding, the princess asked where they were going to live, and suddenly Constantino remembered that he didn't live in a castle. The cat came in clutch again though, and he ran ahead telling people if they saw any royal couples surrounded by guards, they were to say they were loyal to the Lord Constantino, or else they'll be killed by evil mercenaries. And wouldn't you know, as the newlywed couple goes through the local villages, sure enough, everyone's loyal to Lord Constantino. Eventually they get to an unoccupied castle, which the cat introduces as the Castle of Constantino. Where'd the real king of this castle go? Well, he conveniently died on a campaign, and Constantino was the first one to walk in and claim kingship. Thus, they all lived happily ever after. And that was the original story of Puss in Boots. But you may have noticed one very important thing is missing. Not only is he just the cat, but he also doesn't have his signature boots in this story either. Aside from talking, it seems he's just a regular, normal cat. Well, a few other Italians came along and wrote their own versions of this story, but nobody's version stuck until Charles Perrault wrote his version. In the late 1600s, Charles Perrault came along and published his book Stories or Tales from Past Times with Morals, which had a story featuring Puss in Boots, titled The Master Cat or The Cat in Boots. Perrault's version is similar to the previous version I just covered, but this version's a little more fleshed out in certain parts. It starts with a miller who died and left their 3 sons 3 incredibly valuable possessions. The oldest received the mill, the middle child received the donkey, and the youngest child received a cat named Puss. You can definitely tell who's the favorite child. The youngest child was disappointed over his inheritance, and he worried he'd be so poor he'd have to eat the cat. Wow, that got way dark wicked fast. Puss heard this threat on his life, but decided to ignore it. Pausing the story real quick, guys. If a guy inherits his family's pet, and his first thought is he'll have to eat it, that's a red flag, and you run away. Back to the story. Puss says, "Master, give me some boots, and we'll never be poor." The youngest child doesn't get a name in this version, so I'll just refer to him as Puss's master. Puss's master gives the cat some boots, and from there, the story remains the same. Puss kills some rabbits for the king, but insists his master's the one killing them. The river plan happens, the youngest is saved, he marries the princess, and the youngest then realizes he has no house befitting for a princess. Puss says he'll fix it, and he does the same thing he did in the other story. He tells people to swear allegiance to his master. Puss then gets to the castle, but instead of finding it empty, he finds an ogre living inside. But this ogre is nothing like Shrek at all. This ogre is violent, and he is magical. Specifically, he can shapeshift. He nearly kills Puss by shapeshifting into a lion, but Puss manages to avoid and evade. Puss then decides to trick the ogre by saying, "Oh sure, you can turn into a big creature, but I doubt someone of your size can shrink down to a mouse." The ogre then takes that challenge and shapeshifts into a mouse. Puss then immediately goes in for the kill and eats the ogre before he can shapeshift out of his mouse disguise. Oh my god, the Spiderwick Chronicles copied Puss in Boots? Anyway, the king and the newlywed couple all arrive at the castle Puss just took over, and he tells them that it's his master's castle. The princess and Puss's master get married in the castle, and they all live happily ever after. Classic fairy tale ending, and it even has a built-in moral. I usually don't like the idea of a story having one set "this is the meaning." I think the more morals and lessons you can take from a story, the better. The meaning built into this story is that you should not doubt your inheritance, or really anything you receive. You never know when it could come in handy. While other authors wrote variations of Puss's story over the years, Perrault's version was the dominant version, which would stick around for centuries, until 2004 with the release of Shrek 2. Since his debut, Puss has been an iconic member of the Shrek universe, and he's even got 2 spin-off movies. One I never saw, and one that instantly became a favorite movie of mine. Also, for all you weebs out there, Puss is a recognizable face in the anime world too, and you've probably seen him before without even realizing it. You know the logo of Toei Animation? Yeah, that's him. That's Puss in Boots. But why is Puss the logo of a major anime company? Because one of the first major films Toei Animation made was an adaptation of Perrault's Puss in Boots, and they named Puss in Boots after Perrault in that movie. This cat is all over the place, and he's not going away anytime soon. And finally, on a more personal note, this video is dedicated to my family cat, Mac. Mac entered our lives in March 2006, when I was 8 years old. He lived as an outdoor cat, hunting mice, rabbits, and other small creatures, constantly channeling his inner murderous lion. From his youth to his prime, and even into his old age, Mac embodied an adventurous and confident spirit. Unfortunately, he had to be put down earlier this year. He's no longer in any pain, but selfishly, I wish I could see those green eyes looking at me again. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, remember to give your pet a big hug.